So, folks, the guy who is a little bit too interested in what kind of couch you have is, well, continuing to be extraordinarily weird and off-putting. And one of the ways he's discovered on how to do this is he's decided to become a podcast host, essentially by replacing Charlie Kirk. And if you're thinking, oh, well, I thought the vice president was too busy to just do podcasting, you're wrong. Because Donald Trump is just such a go-getting leader that he takes on all of the work, and JD Vance is left with nothing left to do. So he has to go on and help, rehabilitate a podcast, and also, provide comfort to a recently bereaved widow. And just gotta say, some of the images of that are deeply weird and off-putting. Like, I don't know, like the awkward hand on the hip. You got the fact that his face is staring down from a Turning Point USA emblem projected behind him. It's very weird and, off-putting in the extreme. And, I figured it was worth us taking a bit of a look at this particular event, because JD Vance actually gave a speech and then took questions in the style of Charlie Kirk. And I think that would be interesting to watch. I think we can probably skip the speech and go straight to the questions, because I think that's where we're going to find the most value
between here. Jade's potential divorce and this, I think rumors are likely to occur.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how his current wife stands him. Probably not for much longer. But let's take a look at the question.
Debates. Anybody who's telling you their view is to make this side against the native populations, these debates, I'm happy to have them.
Wait,
genocide. Well, I don't think perfect neutrality is possible.
It's pretty crazy that I skipped to a random part of this, and he's talking about he's already talking about defending genocides.
Possible. What is it you don't totally share, and now people will? I think the premise of your question, I don't totally share it, because I don't think perfect neutrality is possible. What is it? You talk about history. Was Christopher Columbus a great explorer, or was he a guy who committed genocide against the native populations? These debates, I'm happy to have them, but I reject the idea that there are truly neutral debates. Anybody who's telling you their view is neutral likely has an agenda to sell you, and I'm at least honest about the fact that I think the Christian foundation of this country is a good thing. Next.
Testosterone, estrogen.
Yeah, I'm talking about hormone replacement therapy. That's what I'm talking about. Just to be respectful, let's keep it going.
Yes, thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Hello, Mr. Vice President. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to talk here today. I did not agree with many of the things that you said right ahead of this, but I don't think that's my point to discuss here. What I want to ask is, you are married to a woman who is not Christian. In her Wikipedia, I just looked it up. I wanted to know what her faith was. I didn't know this before. But she still calls herself Hindu. You are raising three kids in cultural, racial, religious household. How are you maintaining, or how are you teaching your kids not to keep your religion ahead of their mother's religion? Or how are you teaching them that your kind, they're that kind who got here just
JD
few years
is a charisma wee hole, because unlike a black hole, he contains nothing.
Yeah. This has got to be such an uncomfortable question for him.
Few decades ago is different or is better than your mom's kind who got here just a generation before. How are you balancing that? And when you talk about too many immigrants here, when did you guys decide that number? Why did you sell us a dream. You made us spend our youth, our wealth in this country and gave us a dream. You don't owe us anything. We have worked hard for it. Then how can you, as a vice president...
Like, fuck yeah. Love this lady. Like, coming out and being like, you don't owe us anything. We worked hard for what we have. Hell yeah. That is exactly it. Immigrants, whether documented or undocumented, work hard as hell to get every single thing they get. And like, yeah, there's no obligation here.
Stand there and say that we have too many of them now and we are going to take them out to people who are here rightfully so by paying the money that you guys...
He did defend his wife on a Nazi podcast by saying, "I love my wife, even though she isn't white."
Which is insane. Like, I get the feeling we're about to get a similar style of defense here. Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. I do appreciate it.
Ask us. You gave us the path, and now how can you stop it and tell us we don't belong here anymore?
So,
and one more thing. I'm sorry. One more thing.
Sure.
Do you have to
There's
be...
a lot there. I don't know if I'm going to remember all this, but I will try.
I'm sorry. I had to say all of this, and please take it with due... I mean, I'm saying all of this with due respect.
Go ahead.
I have no intention of causing a scene here or anything, but...
We're not close to causing a scene, don't worry.
But we talked about Christianity, all of this. I'm not even Christian, and I'm here standing to show support. Why are we making Christianity one of the major thing that you have to have in common to be one of you guys, to show that I love America just as much as you do? Why is that still a question? Why do I have to be a Christian?
Okay, so there was a lot there, and I'm going to try to respond to as much of it as I can. So on the question of immigration, so first of all, I can believe that we should have lower immigration levels, but if the United States passed a law and made a promise to somebody, the United States, of course, has to honor that promise. Nobody's talking about...
The United States isn't honoring its promises. That's why we deported, like, South Korean engineers that were supposed to be here. You know, it's why we're abducting folks off this, out of airports when they are, like, from another country on a tourist visa. You know, like, what, dude, you're lying. You're lying.
About that. I'm talking about people who came in violation of the laws of the United States of America, and I'm talking about in the future reducing the number of people. Sorry, what?
May I continue on that? Because...
Did you see that JD's wife basically cussed out Cenk Uygur and said that his U.S. citizenship could be in trouble on an online debate? I think you're thinking of Stephen Miller's wife cussed out Cenk. I don't think Cenk Uygur had a debate with Usha Vance.
When you just said you are not stopping with the people who came here legally, right? But you are pushing out policies that hurt us. And these policies are not even solving the problems. These policies are just creating chaos.
Ma'am. Okay, so again, I'm gonna finish answering the question, and then if I've answered all 9 of your questions in less than 15 minutes, then we can keep on going. We got to have a little fun, right? So here's the thing. I can believe that the United States should lower its levels of immigration in the future, while also respecting that there are people who have come here through lawful immigration pathways that have contributed to the country. But just because one person or 10 people or 100 people...
Like, ICE is abducting people who are complying with the court's demands and, like, going to their set court dates. Like, you can't... Dude... Come on now.
Came in legally and contributed to the United States of America. Does that mean that we're thereby committed to let in 1 million or 10 million or 100 million people a year in the future? No, that's not right. We cannot have, I'll go and finish. We cannot have an immigration policy where...
But that's not, like, we can't let 10 million people into the country. No one's asking you to do that.
What was good for the country 50 or 60 years ago binds the country inevitably for the future. There's too many people who want to come to the United States of America.
You can't even call this blood sports, Comrade Girl 2018, because that would imply like there are two different sides of the debate, right? Like this lady doesn't even disagree with him that much, at least unless she's hiding her power level, which I guess that could be the case. But she's like, we're genuinely like this is a relatively friendly environment for him.
And my job as vice president is not to look out for the interests of the whole world. It's to look out for the people of the United States. Now, you
also, this lady is brave as hell. She's just like, I want to respond now. Like, my turn to say something now. Like, let's go. Spine of steel on this one.
You asked a personal question about our interfaith household. And yes, my wife did not grow up Christian. I think it's fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not a particularly religious family in either direction. In fact, when I met my wife, we were both, I would consider myself an agnostic or an atheist, and that's what I think she would have considered herself as well. You know, everybody has to come to their own arrangement here. The way that we've come to our arrangement is she's my best friend. We talk to each other about this stuff. So we decided to raise our kids Christian. Our two oldest kids who go to school, they go to a Christian school. Our 8-year-old did his first communion about a year ago. That's the way that we have come to our arrangement. But thank you.
Our arrangement is, I get to decide what religion our kids are raised in. Like, oh boy, Catholic converts are always freaks. 9 times out of 10, yeah. He's not agnostic. No, but he's saying he used to be agnostic, but then he's converted to Catholicism. And so like his argument here is like, oh yeah, my wife and I talked about it, and I get to raise the kids as Catholic. And to rousing applause,
My 8-year-old was also very proud of his first communion. Thank you, guys. I'll tell him that Ole Miss wishes him the best. But I think everybody has to have this own conversation when you're in a marriage. I mean, it's true for friends of mine who are in Protestant and Catholic marriages, friends of mine who are in, atheist and Christian marriages. You just got to talk to the only advice I can give is you just got to talk to the person that God has put you with. And
yeah, but she wasn't asking about,
Based on Tulsi, it might not be the best to raise your kids in certain Hindu families either.
Well, I mean, Tulsi's in like the Hindutva, on that Hindutva vibe, like she's in that like fascist nationalism vibe cult, like you gotta avoid that all over. But I guess my point here is that like this lady's asking like about immigrants in general, and it's like, why is Christianity a prerequisite to be a good American is kind of the heart of her question. And like, if you are saying that's the heart of what it means to be a good American, but your wife isn't a Christian, does that not present some pretty extreme problems? And JD Vance is basically just ignoring that part of her question.
You've got to make those decisions as a family unit. For us, it works out. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her, and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends,
that indoctrinating children is fine as long as its religion took me years, and I've still got issues because of church.
Well, I mean, I think all parents to some degree, like, they teach their kids, right? And like parents tend to teach kids what they know, and like I think a lot of that winds up being wrong. Parents screw up. Fallible, human. But I think where it goes horribly awry is the fundamentalism, whether it's like any kind, really. My whole feeling.
Eventually, that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church. Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't, then God says everybody has free will. And
All
so that doesn't
religion is indoctrination tips Fedora.
I mean, yeah, it's not. It is. It technically has to be, because it's not something you can necessarily just discover generally by yourself.
cause a problem for me. That's something you work out with your friends, with your family, with the person that you love.
Like if you're on a desert island, you're not going to be able to figure that out. You're not going to think your way into Christianity in isolation.
Again, one of the most important Christian principles is that you respect free will. Usha's closer to the priests who baptized me than maybe I am. They talk about this stuff. My attitude is you figure this stuff out as a family and you trust in God to have a plan and you try to follow it as best as you can. And that's what I try to do.
Again, I would love if she was allowed some follow-up questions like, do you believe your wife is going to hell? Do you believe your wife is going to burn in eternal torment forever? I think that's a pretty decent question right there.
Make a final point. So I don't want to cut you off. I want to be respectful to all the people behind you in line, but I want to make this point about immigration, okay? If you ask the question, what is the exact right number of immigrants for the United States to let in? It is just very specific on the context. If you go back to the 1920s.
Very specific on the context of what? What criteria?
The United States passed an Immigration Reform Act that effectively cut down immigration to close to zero for 40 years in this country. And what happened?
What? I'm sorry. Just real quick. Just like real quick, right? Can anyone think of like some kind of event that may have occurred throughout the 1930s and 1940s that might have curtailed the amount of immigration to the United States? World War II, that's one. The Great Depression, that's another one. Might have had some kind of effect on that. Let's just out of curiosity here. Also, yeah, in the 1950s, we removed racial barriers to immigration and naturalization, starting in 1952. So one might say, well, more people came in. But I don't know if any of you recall what happened in 1953, which was one of the largest mass deportation events in U.S. history, titled something I can't even say because it's a racial slur. So when he's making this argument that, we changed the law in 1920 and then no immigrants came in until the 1960s. Well, that would be because the Great Depression, World War II, and then you have, obviously some loosening of immigration laws, actually, combined with an active campaign to do mass deportations of, Mexican immigrants. Does it have a bill number? Well, no, because it's called Operation W slur for Hispanic people. Yep, that one. Exactly. He's talking about the Asian Exclusion Act of 1924. Yes, he is talking about that. He's basically talking about like the history of trying to prevent people from coming into this country. But the reason folks didn't start coming in generally until the 1960s was because like in 1965 you have like a lot of an end essentially to discrimination in this way. You've got the civil rights movement, you've got people campaigning against racism actively. And like you also have a boom of immigration from like through the 1950s from European countries. And so JD Vance is just wrong here, but it's interesting in what ways he's wrong. because he's deliberately obfuscating some basic facts.
Why did we see barely any Asian immigration between 1924 and 1946? You'd think they were off at camp somewhere. Is this mic on? J.D. Klutz.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. Yeah, like, he's genuinely doing that level of obfuscation. He's relying on an uneducated audience. I know he's at a university here, but like, if anyone knows anything about what he's talking about in this time period, they know that immigration didn't drop to 0 for 40 years.
Over those 40 years, the many people who had come from many different foreign countries and different foreign cultures, they assimilated into American culture. And there was an expectation that they would assimilate into American culture. I think we have 2 problems in our immigration system today. And my guess is you're probably a slightly more leftist political persuasion, liberal political persuasion, maybe not. But here's the thing. I remember Back in my establishment GOP days, when I was still very early getting involved in Republican politics, I remember a conservative think tank person who told me that one of the reasons why immigration was really good is that if you had enough diversity in a country, people would mistrust each other and they wouldn't join labor unions. Okay? So when I see a lot of left-wing people who theoretically support organized labor saying we need to flood the country with a limitless number of immigrants, they're unwilling to set any limitations on it. My response to that is you are destroying the very social trust on which American freedom and prosperity was built.
You get applause for saying that? What? I need to listen to that again, because that was insane.
Immigration was really good is that if you had enough diversity in a country, people would mistrust each other and they wouldn't join labor unions.
No, because what happened was that bosses started seeing their workforces unionize, and they used racism as a wedge. Like, that wasn't the workers, like, beefing with each other and we're not going to form a union because you guys are different skin tone than us. Like, that wasn't something that developed naturally. That was injected by the bosses, by the capital owners, by the people who were trying to break the unions, because there were agitators paid specifically to do that. And so, like, again, in order to clap for this, you have to have no idea what you're talking about, or what he's talking about, rather. And like the entire, like, the idea that, like, oh well, unions can't possibly be built on a multiracial, like, multi-gender, multi-ethnic workforce, that's crazy. Like, of course they can. Almost every single union in America is built on the backs of, like, a incredibly diverse workforce. What you think like the efforts to unionize Starbucks is like, oh, they're all the same type of people? Oh, the efforts to unionize, like, I don't know, Amazon warehouses? You think all the Amazon warehouse people are all the same, like, skin tone? Like, what are you talking about, bro? This is some absolute nonsense. Now I know why Pope Francis died within days of meeting him. Oh, God.
Okay, so when I see a lot of left-wing people who theoretically support organized labor saying we need to flood the country with a limitless number of immigrants, they're unwilling to set any limitations on it.
Yeah, you just want to be a good guy and help those leftists, right, JD?
My response to that is you are destroying the very social trust on which American freedom and prosperity was built.
Okay, wait. So, all right. So, just to be clear, his point has nothing to do with unions. It just awkwardly shoehorns unions into the conversation. Because his point here is that if you allow diverse groups of people to come into the United States, they will, of course, destroy any effort to organize with them when it comes to organizing them with different groups of people. And he says not that, oh, leftists are killing unions and we need unions because unions make America strong. He's saying diversity kills unions and it also kills our country. What he's saying is that by allowing non-white people into America, you're killing America. That's what he's saying. God, what a freak. What a disgusting freak. It's, it is just Nazi shit. Like, we need to talk more about how the Vice President of the United States is just straight up going around doing stage appearances and regurgitating like Ku Klux Klan talking points. It's nuts. Almost like diluting the purity of the people or something. Yeah, like exactly. That is the point he's making here. Look at this. Look at the camera right now on this guy. Just like he just heard what was said. Holy hell.
And that is really important to me.
Still clapping though, so maybe I read that expression wrong.
The honest answer to your question, what is the exact number of immigrants America should accept in the future? Right now, the answer is far less than we've been accepting. We have got to become a common community again, and you can't do that when you have such high numbers of immigration, which is one of the reasons why we have the immigration policy we do. Thank you. Next.
Well, wait a minute. If you have people coming into your community who are going to be there to stay, then you're just growing your community. It's more people for you to be in community with. That's not bad, actually. That's good. It's like the entire premise of like building, from a village to a town to a city. Like that's actually you can't do that unless more people come together.
Good evening, Vice President Vance. I just want to say it's an honor to actually be able to talk to you.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. One of my biggest questions is, I feel like one of the biggest problems that America is facing today is that ever-growing social political divide, and we're seeing this on the Republican and Democratic side, but we've seen that a refusal to cooperate with the other side has led to some major issues, including right now the government shutdown, and I wonder, as the party in power, what are your plans to address that issue towards reaching that olive branch out to the other.
I'm actually shocked that he's getting this question. Even the recognition of well, you're the party in power. So what are you going to do? Is such an inconvenient question for JD Vance. Kiwi Burb, thank you for being a member. And also, I'll read your comment. It's like saying we don't want water, we want H2O. I mean, kind of, yeah, exactly.
Side to actually come to an agreement on how to go forward with our government?
Look, it's a very good question, and let me just say on the government shutdown in particular, the reality here is that there's a very simple bill that just reopens the government. It does it through pretty much the end of the year. That got every single Republican in the House of Representatives to support it, and then it got 52 Republicans in the Senate and 3 Democrats.
Ask JD Vance why the House isn't back in session to seat Adelita Grijalva.
Democrats in the Senate to support it, but because of weird Senate procedural rules, it requires a 60-vote threshold. So on that issue in particular, when you have every single Republican with 2 exceptions in both houses of Congress, I feel pretty confident. I know that I'm partisan. I know I have an R next to my name, but I feel pretty damn good saying the shutdown is the Democrats' fault because we voted again and again to open.
Jupiter Quake, thank you very much for being a member. Heck yeah. Very much appreciated. The Nazis had meth in pill form. Very true. They did indeed. You can even see a video somewhere online of Hitler high as a kite on meth. I think while watching the Olympics.
Now, but there's a broader question there, and I think most Americans, whatever their political persuasion, would actually like the country's political parties to work together better to solve the problems. And look, and I agree with that. And my approach when I was in the United States Senate was to try.
We can't become a community with immigrants. We all eat. We all work. We all love our families and get rained on together. If you can't build a community on that, I don't want the community you build.
That is such a great sentiment, Nomi Sunrider, and I like it a lot. He ignores all of the fundamental things that make working people the same, which is exponential, those similarities. You have more in common with a working class person anywhere in this country than you do with JD Vance. And I don't care what color your skin is. Like, this man thinks the color of your skin is more important than, like, where y'all eat, where y'all work, your families, where your kids play, what the weather's like. Those things are what bind us together. They're the points of interaction for us. This is just a death cult, man.
Try to find some issues where we could agree with the other side on and try to work with them on it. And let me give you one example. I really worry about concentration in the corporate sector. I worry about big corporate monopolies. I worry that when you have...
Yeah, which is why, the Trump administration keeps approving monopoly after monopoly after monopoly. Just a totally normal thing. Okay?
Have only one or two companies dominating an entire sector, it's bad for liberty and it's bad for prosperity. So you may be shocked to hear this, but I actually worked with Elizabeth Warren on some anti-monopoly stuff when I was in the United States Senate. But here's the problem. The problem is there is actually a lot of things where we could work across the aisle. There are a lot of President Trump is in my view, you haven't seen organized labor ever get behind a Republican at least in 100 years.
Oh my God. Yeah, you've never seen the cop unions get behind this guy quite like you ever have against with any other candidate. God, that fucking Teamsters endorsement is going to come back to bite us forever.
Like they have behind Donald J. Trump. There are a lot of areas of common ground on that question. The problem is, as reasonable as some of these people can be in private, in public, the current obsession of the Democratic Party in leadership, I'm not saying every Democrat in the country, but the current obsession of every Democrat in Congress is get President Trump, fight President Trump, attack President Trump. It is impossible for us to work across the aisle unless a person is willing to put down their partisan sword, shut the hell up about fake scandals related to Donald Trump, and actually work with him.
Yeah. You all need to shut up about the Epstein files. There's nothing there. Yes, applaud me.
That's the way you make this happen.
No pedophiles in this administration. Applaud me,
Next.
you sheep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. We'll try to get through as many as possible, guys. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Vice President.
Hello.
Hi. I actually drove here all the way from Memphis, Tennessee. Go Tigers. So, I'm sure everyone here is aware of the Memphis Safe Task Force that has been in the city for about a month now. And I checked a little earlier. As of this morning, I believe they've arrested 1,700 people and seized about 300 illegal guns. So I want to ask, how
can we legalize more of those guns? Because that's what I'm really concerned about here. The fact, not the fact that we're rounding up people, but we're rounding up guns now? Have we abandoned all of our principles?
Enforcement objective jive with Attorney General Pam Bondi's pledge to make the Department of Justice a more pro-Second Amendment.
Holy shit. Wait, what? Wait, I was doing a bit. I was doing a bit. No. Oh, no. Oh, fuck, Mississippi. Oh, Mississippi, you are so cooked. Oh, my God. Oh no, I can't even make fun of these guys anymore. Oh no. Oh no, no. Oh God. Okay, all right.
Department of Justice, because I'm sure most people here support the Second Amendment. So how can Republicans and this
I did not pre-watch
Department of Justice use the current gun laws that are on the books that a lot of pro-Second Amendment advocates disagree with, that we wanted to overturn in the big beautiful bill, but we didn't get it?
Yeah. So I
oh my God. He's not upset about the 1,700 people arrested. He's genuinely upset that 300 illegal guns were seized. Oh my God. Why are you surprised? Because that seemed like such an insane thing to say. I thought there's no way he would say that. Right-wing brain rot is fascinating. It really is, Hefe. Not illegal guns, over-regulated. Yeah, look, I know they're undocumented guns, okay? But maybe there's some kind of way we could document them. You know, what if we issued documentation to the guns after they are obtained? And then, you know, they're no longer undocumented guns and they can go about their merry gun ways and lead their gun lives and, you know, raise their gun families.
I understand the question. And by the way, I supported some of those changes in the big beautiful bill. I know the President of the United States did too.
Why not just have a massive, I don't know, gun amnesty program?
Didn't have the votes to get them in there, and that's as simple as that. But I know exactly what you're talking about because there were a couple of issues in particular.
I'm sorry, you know, I'm doing a bit here, but like, it is insane that this guy is like, why, you know, you're going after all these guns, and you know you don't have to. But like, there's no similar feeling there for living, breathing people and children. Like they're genuinely like, why can't you just document the guns and release them back into the public? When like
those guns will have food stamps and universal health care before we do.
Genuinely. Like at this point, it's like, do you have a gun? You're gonna get preferential treatment from the U.S. government. Golly, folks, parity is dead. I've been saying that for a while now, but like I keep encountering this, and it sends me for a ride.
I talked to some of my Second Amendment friends, but here's the basic issue: we don't want people who have violated the law, who have committed felonies. The Second Amendment, like every other amendment, it's about due process. It's that you don't have your rights violated unless there is due process of law. If you're a person who's committed
unless, you know, you're an undocumented person, in which case you get exactly zero due process in this country.
Felonies, and a court has lawfully ordered that you shouldn't have a gun, and you're running around with a firearm, I don't have any problem with law enforcement saying you don't get to have that firearm that is illegally possessed, illegally obtained. I think that's basic law and order. Now, again, if you had, you know, if you had somebody come in and say, well, we don't think that person should have a firearm, but they haven't violated any law, that's a totally separate question. That's not what we're focused on. What we're focused on...
Well, you guys have said that about trans people, so, you know, you are kind of advocating for that.
Is violent crime and people who have violated, you know, the bodily autonomy of another human people. A person who has committed an act of violence against one of their fellow citizens, we're going to clean up the streets, get those people off the streets, and make America safe for the American citizens again. That is our entire law and order policy, and I think we're doing a pretty good job at it. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a Christian man, and I'm just confused why that there's this notion that we might have owe Israel something, or that they're our greatest ally, or that we have to support this multi-hundred-billion-dollar foreign aid package to Israel to cover this, to quote Charlie Kirk, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. I'm just confused why this idea has come around, considering the fact that not only does their religion not
Bodily
agree.
autonomy argument from a Republican, but what about abortion?
They genuinely believe that guns deserve more autonomy than women. Like, good God.
Bodily autonomy, unless you're pregnant.
Indeed, Sake Tanuki. Yeah, bodily autonomy, even if you're a corpse, unless you're pregnant. God. Also, this guy's about to go in a very weird direction. You can tell. Yeah, this guy's about to JQ so hard.
Considering the fact that not only does their religion not agree with ours, but also openly
Can we just say their religion doesn't agree with ours, right? One, America's not a Christian country. Like, we're not a Christian nation. It is one of the more Christian countries out there, of course, but like, it's not like the center of Christendom, right? And when we're talking about this, like, our religion, like, I'm sorry, we live in a secular society. Like, we have Muslim people, we have Sikh folk, we have Hindu folk, we got Buddhists, we got, several different flavors of Christians. Like, just kind of seems to me like one of the things that needs to be talked about here is that, like, Jewish people aren't Israel and Christians aren't America. These are two different things, right? I washed my hair earlier, so it still looks a little wet. Sorry. God.
towards the prosecution of ours.
Yeah, so let me...
It's all good. Not like the Son of God was Jewish or anything.
No. These people would never say that.
Let's say a few things about this. First of all, when the President of the United States says America first, that means that he pursues the...
Something that helped radicalize me was the phrase "they just want you to suffer" and D*E, and I once thought that's gotta be an exaggeration, but reality came swinging the baseball bat.
Yeah, like, you really can't interpret it any other way when, like, the Trump administration is deliberately cutting off, like, food to 40 plus million people. And again, over half of them are children. Like, and they don't have to. They have a rainy day fund that is specifically for times of shutdown. And they're just saying, nah, we're not gonna do that. And like, oh, okay, so you're just gonna let people die. Mr. Malachite says, when I was a Christian, I felt strongly that Jewish people and I worshipped the same God, just in a somewhat different way. I don't think the current Christian right feels that way. And that's very true, Mr. Malachite. And I will say also that when I was a very devout fundamentalist Christian, I also felt that way. But I didn't end my extension of, like, that idea to just Jewish people. I also extended it to, like, Muslim folks, like all the Abrahamic religions, right? And like, that was something that early on caused me to have, like, some internal doubts, like seeing 9/11 happen and seeing, like, the anti-Muslim bigotry rise in the United States. Like, that was one of those things where I was like, what? I wait a minute, I thought you guys were on the same team. Like, I thought you guys, this seems like a very huge double standard. You're now spreading hate on account of this religion. They fundamentally are worshiping the same God as us, and it's just, that seems weird. And yet, no, that makes a lot of sense, Mr. Malachite, because, like, I wasn't raised to believe that Muslims worshipped Satan. I was just like, oh, they're in the same religious family. All right. One big happy family, right? A lot of Christians never got on board that train.
Interests of Americans first. That is our entire foreign policy. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have alliances, that you're not going to work with other countries from time to time. And that is what the president believes, is that Israel, sometimes they have similar interests to the United States and we're going to work with them in that case. Sometimes they don't have similar interests to the United States. And this example, the most recent Gaza peace plan that all of us have been working on very hard for the past few weeks, the president of the United States could only get that peace deal done by actually being willing to apply leverage to the state of Israel. So when people say that Israel is somehow manipulating or controlling the president of the United States, they're not controlling this president of the United States, which is one of the reasons why we'd be able to have some of the success that we've had in the Middle East. Now, you ask about, sort of Jews disagreeing with Christians on certain religious ideas. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the realities is that Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Obviously, Christians do believe that. There are some significant theological disagreements between Christians and Jews.
I agree, Disaster Suplex. Somebody does need to ask him about, his opinions of the current Pope, because the current Pope is kind of directly talking about the Trump administration basically every day now and condemning its actions.
The attitude is, let's have those conversations. Let's have those disagreements when we have them. But if there are shared areas of interest, we ought to be willing to do that too. For example, I really care about...
Why is that guy holding his phone? Because a lot of people write down their questions before they ask them so that, don't forget their question.
One thing I really, really care about is the preservation of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Christians believe that that is the site where Jesus Christ was crucified, and also that his tomb is right there as well. My attitude is, if we can work with our friends in Israel to make sure that Christians have safe access to that site, that's an obvious area of common interest. I am fine with that. What I'm not okay with is any country coming before the interests of American citizens.
Unless it's Argentina and the president needs to bail out his rich asshole friends that live in the anarcho-capitalist state.
It is important for all of us, assuming we're American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's what we're going to do. That's what we try to do every single day, I promise you. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Vice President. I'm the president of our pro-life organization here at Ole Miss, Rebels for Life.
Yeah.
And I myself, as a president, am 100% pro-life. And I know you've stated, you being Catholic, that in the past, you've stated that you're 100% pro-life. But since joining the presidential campaign as the VP, you've kind of wavered how you see abortion. So I'm just wondering what your stance is right now.
Sure.
And do you think that someone else's right to liberty trumps someone else's right to life?
Literally, yes. Like, the question is, do we as a society have the right to deprive the liberty of folks who don't want their bodies to be used in a way that they feel uncomfortable with, right? And it's like, well, if we were as a society truly in favor of violating bodily autonomy in order to preserve life, we'd have to go a lot farther than just abortion, right? Like, why bother honoring who wants to be an organ donor or not? Just take all of the organs from every corpse. Why, does that dead body's right to liberty trump your right to life? Like, we can start with smaller examples than like a woman who's gonna die if she gives birth. Like, it's genuinely like pretty easy to determine, even if you're just talking about corpses, right? And like, okay, so even if you're like, okay, yeah, no, take the organs from corpses, even if they didn't want them taken. Okay, how do you feel about, I don't know, the U.S. government coming around and with guns drawn saying, hey, it's time for you to give up one of your kidneys. You got two. We need one. We got a lot of people who need kidneys in this country. My mom has diabetes and needs a kidney. should the government be able to like pull you, a healthy person, aside and say, hey, this person's mom needs a kidney. Sorry, you're forced to give her one. No.
Grandpa hooked up to a hospital bed and brain dead? I guess he will stay there forever now.
What do we do about Christian fundamentalism? Genuinely, there needs to be a focus on like returning to like a secular state. Like it needs to be. I think that a lot of the fundamentalism is born out of material conditions. I think there needs to be a focus on building civic engagement and agency outside of religious spaces. Like, I think a lot of that fundamentalism is born out of the death of third spaces and the death of like the ability to build community outside of religion in the United States, right? Like, part of the reason why like rural areas are so religious is because it's the only place you can really go. You know, if it's not a bar, it's the only place you can go. Like, put money towards like community centers, put money towards parks, put money towards a lot of these different programs that like give people the ability to build community without relying on religious institutions. And that are for the public good. Put more money toward public education. Yeah, I mean, that's also it. And I'm also not against the idea of like taxing churches that become overly
Third
politically
spaces
active.
would also fix incels and a number of other issues.
Genuinely, yeah. I just want to say, like, I think that it is very, very possible for us to handle this. And I think that, like, being more proactive when it comes to, like, church religious activity, like, I think that would be a decent step. Because so many of these religious church leaders are veering into politics quite hard. And it's not to say that, like, oh, you shouldn't be able to, like, talk about political issues in church. It's that like they then go beyond that into local politics, and that's a tough line to navigate, I think, just due to like the history of political activism in this country. But I do want to say I think it's worth exploring the idea of taxing churches, especially churches beyond a certain size, and it's also worth investing in third spaces.
Well, first of all, I appreciate your question,
also,
and
Nathan, thank
I
you for
appreciate the work that you do. You asked the question, do I think somebody else's right to liberty trumps somebody else's right to life? No, I do not. I, in fact, do not believe that. Now, you said, and I'm going to take issue with something you said, just the premise of the question, which is that I've wavered on the pro-life issue. I really do believe that the president has been the most pro-life president in the history of the United States of America. Now, that said, there are two things that I think we have to keep in mind here. Now, one is the very, very hard question of, you know, when we talk about our abortion policy, there are some very, very difficult edge cases. There are cases where you've got, you know, an 11-year-old girl who was raped, who it would be unsafe for her to bring the baby to term. You've got situations where, you know, bringing a baby to term would cause...
Again, though, just throwing this out there, in a lot of these circumstances, you know, these exceptions don't exist. These exceptions aren't real in practice. Because even if you have these loopholes, these, you know, exceptions to anti-abortion law, what they wind up doing is, well, how long does it take to prosecute a rape case? How long? Longer than 9 months. That's for damn sure. And if it ever actually makes it through the entire court system in the first place. Who makes the determination about whether or not the mother's life is at risk? Well, doctors have to do that, but they're legally liable for that determination. So a lot of hospitals refuse to make it. You know, these are not situations where the exceptions are real. And so, like, even if you have those exceptions, they don't protect shit. They don't protect anybody, especially if your state's policies have closed all of the clinics that would do such an operation, or could do such an operation. Do they have to pass some threshold before their life is in danger? Who decides that? It's literally just up to the doctor's discretion, but they can be sued for said discretion. Yeah, we literally have women dying as a result of this legislation right now.
Serious bodily harm, maybe death for the mother. That's one of the reasons why we believe in the exception in this.
It's essentially the Republican coward's way out.
These cases where you have, again, they're edge cases, they're rare. I think the pro-abortion community would have you believe that's 90% of abortions. That's not true. But we got to be honest about the fact that there are some edge cases. The second thing I'd say about this is that we have to be prudential and practical and...
Oh, shit. Liz Galahad exactly exemplifying the problem. I've mentioned this before, but I work at a Casey's. It's a gas station that makes pizza, and people will come to the store multiple times a day just to hang out because there's literally nothing else to do in the town. It's really sad to see someone come into the store for the 4th time that day on their day off work. That is really sad. And we can do so much better. We can do so much better.
And one brain-dead woman on life support, a baby will be born with no mother.
Oh, God. Yeah. That entire circumstance. Absolutely monstrous.
What can get accomplished. And there may be disagreements about what exactly that is, but if you look at the pro-life victories that the President of the United States has been able to achieve, he's been able to achieve them because he has worked within the system that we have. If your attitude is you are going to pursue the most aggressive pro-life option, even if it means you lose every election and every outcome means that you're going to be in a situation where the Democrats have abortion on demand up to the moment of birth to the very end. You've got to...
Yeah, you know, some Democrats these days are advocating for even post-birth abortion. You know, with infinite grace periods. Mad Max music starts playing.
Work within the political constraints that we have. Now, here let me just say something about this. And you know, somebody asked me earlier about my Christian values. And one of the points I made is that when the settlers...
One of my Christian values is that women ain't people.
Came to the New World, they found a very widespread child sacrifice. I imagine there are some people who don't agree with my view on...
Yet, that isn't at all substantiated whatsoever. You know, some of the people who came to the New World also looked at a manatee and said, oh, fuck, that looks like a human woman. So, you know, maybe take their early accounts with some grains of salt there, bud.
On the pro-life issue, let me just make an observation. If you go to historical archaeological sites where there were brothels, and the two oldest businesses in the world are gambling and prostitution, so there were brothels even in very ancient civilizations.
I love going to McDonald's and ordering 2 abortions with a side of fries.
Classic combo. I hear they give you a discount for that.
You go back to ancient brothels and you dig up the bones of the women who are working in these places, you will very often find a lot of children who were buried with them. And the answer is that whenever a society decides to discard innocent babies, they also don't treat their women very well.
What are you implying? Because it feels like what he's implying here is that when...
I'm listening to this while reading mutual aid, and I'm over here like, I want to go live with the Hottentots.
One-eyed heathen, thank you for the $5. It's just like... Is your argument here that in the brothel, if the prostitute died, they would kill her children? Or that they were doing abortion in the brothel? I've been around and imbibed a lot of brain rot.
Side note, this talk of ancient brothels and dead babies is immensely creepy. How are here?
It is very creepy. But also, like, and I don't know how to say this gently, JD Vance does look like he would know a thing or two about dead prostitutes. You know, he just kind of gives that vibe, all right?
And whenever a society mistreats its women, it is very often the babies who come right after that. There is a reason.
Well, wait a minute. Usually it starts off with the mistreatment of the children, right? Like the less powerful, and then it goes to the typically, like, an unjust society places its highest burden on the weakest people, hence the injustice.
Why Christian civilization,
or the people perceived to be weakest. Yeah, it's also why in, like, our country a lot of children aren't taken seriously when they have concerns. You know? Like, a lot of parents even will just be like, they're just making noise, and, like, not listen to what their kids are saying, and, like, sometimes what kids are saying is really important, you know?
ended the practice of child sacrifice all over the world, and it's one of the great accomplishments of Christian civilization.
Dude, your government is cutting off food aid to 23 million children. Like, you can't argue that Christianity has ended the practice of child sacrifice when your administration is deliberately cutting off food aid to 23 million children in this country when you don't have to. And also, like, you're doing it so you can give $1 trillion to the richest people on the planet. Like...
Speak for yourself. I'm still tossing kids into volcanoes and off cliffs. Quotas need to be kept.
The old gods must not be woken. That's the real danger of woke, by the way. They don't tell you that in the anti-woke academy. But the real reason we're against it is because the old gods might awaken. I'm sorry, but, like, reality is parodying itself. It's wild. But, like, you're essentially okay if children starve to death, right, JD? As long as your rich buddies like Peter Thiel, your #1 fan and backer, get some of that $1 trillion tax cut that you want to send their way, right? Like, that's what's happening here. Let's be very clear.
I believe that we should try to be protecting every unborn life. There's a question of exactly how we do it, but I would never say that...
What about the potentially born? You know?
Institute of Wokology with Professor Wokenton.
Exactly, Nathan. You understand. You went to the alma mater, you know? WOKU. Yeah. Thank you for the $5 dono. But, like...
It's only child sacrifice if it's a burnt offering to Moloch in ancient Carthage. Otherwise, it's just sparkling infanticide.
Oh my god. Matatiahu, thank you for the $5 dono. It's just... you know, I've never understood why these types... Like, if you need to protect the unborn... Does the category of unborn not also include the potentially born? Like, isn't... Like, it just kind of seems to me like, if life is that sacred, surely, like, every individual sperm must also be sacred. Surely, like, every unfertilized egg must also be sacred. Right? Like...
The term unborn just makes me think they're trying to shove a fully developed fetus back in there.
Oh god. Oh god, the mental image is terrible, Sake. But, like, yeah, like, we're getting into Monty Python territory, and I don't think they even realize it, because, like, if it's just so sacred that it's worth violating, like, a woman's bodily autonomy in order to protect that life, then surely the components would carry some level of sacred value. Like, why are you not prosecuting men for jerking off? Why are you not prosecuting, like, women who are ovulating and not
Every
getting
period is
knocked up?
A genocide. This is why women must remain barefoot and pregnant at all time.
But, like, that is kind of their point, right? Like, or not their point, but, like, it seems like the logical extension of their idea. If sperm is wasted, God gets quite irate. Indeed. Nathan, thank you for the $5 dono. Becoming Tanya, thank you for the $5 super chat. Very much appreciated, folks. And God, this is awful. Awful.
Anyone's right to life should be sacrificed. Thank you, ma'am.
I don't know that I can. There are a couple more questions here. I don't know that I can handle this, largely because it's 3:00 in the morning and we got other stuff we need to talk about. So I think I'm gonna call this here. But I did want to take a quick look.
But what should you do when Jesus tells you to come?
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. Here we go. One last bit about this, all right? Just absolutely fucking weird hand on the back of his head ass shit. I'm sorry. This is so uncomfortable, but also, like, he's standing like a man who's never seen a room this big before. They doing it? Yeah, look, the entire point of this was to kind of point out that JD Vance is an out-of-touch weirdo with hateful Nazi-esque ideas, and also the fact that he routinely throws his wife under the bus and is being real handsy with Charlie Kirk's widow. Long story short, our intrepid young vice president here seems like he's building himself a bit of a pickle. Look, Jack, he just thought the Kirk's wife was a couch, okay? It's really easy mistake to make.
Ever notice how every mainstream conservative woman is blonde with the same hairstyle?
I mean, I have noticed that. They do look basically the same. Look, Erica Kirk was wearing leather pants, and it reminded him of a beloved fold in a couch that he saw once. It's a hot orgy of evil. It truly is. Folks, we've gone for so long, and like I don't know if we got anything valuable out of this. I think we had a few laughs along the way, staring into the black void of abyss that is JD Vance's
I'd rather him
soul.
build a pickle than IKEA.
Wait, would you? Okay, wait, I got confused there. Do you want him to build a pickle over him building an IKEA? Or are you saying you would rather JD Vance builds a pickle than IKEA builds a pickle? Because, I'd try the IKEA pickle. Also, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. And with that, folks, we are done with this segment. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Do the things that help the channel grow. And, of course, we're going to keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.